And here we are, live and bogus as ever. In fact, maybe a little bit more bogus than usual. None of our guests have turned up yet. We have sent out invites, but you know what Google can be like. So it could be that it's not paying attention. So let's kick off in time-honoured tradition. When I say time-honoured, we made it up about 8 months ago, and we've stuck with it ever since. Bill, what have you been up to this week?
Hey, good morning. I've been up to no good, pretty much.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear.
I haven't been blogging. I haven't been writing. I found about 10 patents that I wanted to blog about this morning. I haven't written anything to them yet, but it's a good start finding them.
Yeah. Well, Barbara's taking over from you now anyway. So. All you get to do now is link to her finding all the patents.
She's much smarter than I am, so I'll learn more if she writes about them.
You never know. I think she's got a different way of approaching them.
She does.
Yeah. Which, I think you can actually have a patent written by about 4 different people and still get something different from it from each take.
I think getting the different insights really makes a difference.
Yeah. It's the little personal touches in how somebody interprets it, but also I think their own experiences in how they've applied similar things will affect how they see the patent taking effect.
Right. The last one I wrote about talked about whether or not rankings for web pages increased when people clicked on those pages in search results. And Gary Ives, is that how you pronounce his last name?
I think so. Ives.
He stated recently that it's too noisy a signal. It doesn't work.
On its own.
And Rand Fishkin tweeted to me, no, that's opposite of what our tests show. Our tests are showing those clicks do help those rank.
Or that they correlate with something that does.
Or they correlate with something, right.
From what I've seen, you can tie seasonality. I've seen it where SERPs at Christmas are all transactional pretty much. I've seen Wikipedia go from 3 to like 15 in a really highly transactional query, Bill, and that's the seasonality. And I always thought it was like them seeing more clicks on transactional sites and kind of saying, okay, we need more transactional sites in the results.
So somebody searching for Hanukkah in late November, early December is probably doing a transactional search. And in January, same query, they're doing an informational search.
Gotcha. Even more so, this was pajamas, and pretty much after, Valentine's Day, might as well send the staff home for a few months, if you know what I mean.
A lot more pajama sales before the 14th, okay.
Right, and in September, too. That's when it kind of heats up again. Because you also have Christmas starting up then.
That makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things, the weather gets colder, people go, maybe I better start wearing pajamas, and then the weather gets warm and you think...
And the other thing is other people have done some of these tests where they, bombarded a list, a certain site and made it go up for a while, but as soon as they stopped clicking, it dropped in the rankings really fast. That's showing that, that effect a lot. That's one way to kind of counteract pogo sticking, or is that what it's called? Where the number one gets extra hits because it's number one?
They kind of counteract that in the algorithm anyway. I know Google have talked about that effect extensively. So they're aware of what positions do to search, and I believe there is a counterbalance built in. Rand, of course, has been experimenting with pogo sticking, where people, go to a result and then bounce back to the search engine later on.
Well, here's something that I know that me and Dave saw was when universal search was in, clicks on different types of media, for instance, news and videos, all of a sudden you saw more news and video if it was getting clicked more. We found that with, we did some blog posts and then embedded the video a few places, had people, you know what I mean. We weren't spamming or anything, just, it happened naturally, got embedded, and you saw all of a sudden the same video in the results twice on two different posts on kind of dissimilar things, but on the same term. It was one way to kind of manipulate universal search.
I have this feeling that a certain amount of that is personalized anyway, but also what I notice with the SERPs now is that there are so many different indices that go together to build up a page, and it does seem to me that video is a separate index that Google tries to pull in a video if there's one that reaches a certain level of relevance. That there is certainly your social, and your social tends to be 2 to 3 on most things. There's the local search, of course, which tends to be about 3. And the reason that you spot these as separate indices is that it tends to be the same numbers each time. I.e., you will get 3 to 5 social depending on the type of query. You'll get 1 to 5 local depending on the type of query. And all of these things, from query to query where they're similar, the numbers stay the same. And that tells me that what they're doing is saying, right, we need this many of this index, and they're then pulling that other index. And
or verticals. So if you think in their terms, it would be more like verticals too. Image vertical, local vertical. That's what we used to call them anyhow.
It's like Google testing stuff out to see how people react.
Yeah.
And responding to those tests by showing different types of sites.
Well, I think it's all
like they might do with local search under Pigeon.
Yep.
Where they put something out there and see how people respond. And if people respond positively, they'll keep on putting that one out there.
Yeah.
Right. Just like you can kind of say that even about the stuff they've been doing recently, right? With the what's displayed, right? Rather than they don't look at code anymore, they look at what's displayed. And when I really sat down and thought about why that's important to them, it's because users aren't like us who use the net all the time and know if there's tabs there, that's probably where the information that was supposed to be on this page and doesn't appear to be is. So Google said, you know what, this is making us look bad. Let's make the webmasters work around this problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
it makes a lot of sense to me.
That's a different verticals showing up as answer box results.
Yep.
Including question answering as one of those verticals.
Have you seen much flux in that, where you might see in a query, Bill, where it's like a knowledge panel or an answer box, and then they switch that out and just go back to the regular 10 results?
I think there are different triggers.
Right.
You know, sometimes the markup is done well enough so that a knowledge panel shows up. And sometimes it isn't, and you get more fluctuation between the two types.
I actually did an experiment around that because I ended up getting an answer box for how to get more followers on Google+. And when I got it, basically after I was alerted to it, I have a study up there on our blog about this, but I didn't intentionally go after that answer box. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty low query to get an answer box, right? You know, we're talking about 1,200 monthly searches. And I said, well, okay, well, here's a query over here that gets 2,500 monthly query searches. So at least according to Webmaster Tools, Search Console. But anyway, I went in and I just made just a couple, like about 6 or 7 changes on page. Just mainly keywords more than anything else. I added a link here and there to another internal piece on our blog and an external link. And what ended up happening is within, I think it was within a 10-day period, the number of keywords that I was showing up for that were relational to that core string changed. Mm-hmm. And then I monitored it basically about every 2 hours. I would just kind of bring it up and see, okay, is the answer box still there? Is it still there? Is it still there? And it would drop out, it would drop back, it would drop in, and I query some of my other friends and say, well, what do you see? And it would disappear and come back. It would fluctuate.
Was it set up like a FAQ question where it was anchor text and it linked to the answer?
No, again, this was completely unintentional SEO, you could say.
Sometimes that's where the best gains come from, Ben.
Exactly, right. I mean, I'm old school. I'm 1990s SEO type, right? So it's like, you know, anyway, not to get into too much history, but yeah, exactly. So unintentional is the best.
Optimizing for definitions.
Yeah, I mean, basically the article was, all it was an interview. It was a very in-depth interview where there was a question and then there was an answer. And the answer was anywhere from 1.5 to 5 paragraphs in length. Over 2,200 words in the entire article. And at the end of the article, we had a wrap-up that basically just took those bullet points and said, well, here's your takeaways. The answer box that we were awarded was basically the takeaways. It was a step-by-step approach on how to get followers. And that was the step-by-step approach. And so that's what triggered it, and I got, you know, the best answer box that you can get minus an image, you know. But, you know, so it was the 5 with the trailing dots with the read more and the link.
Was it, okay, so was it read more, did it motivate people to come to that page?
Oh, gosh, yes.
See?
Yeah, well, here you go. So I'll give you some numbers. So the average click-through rate, basically, on the entire site or the entire blog, well, actually not the entire site, was about its average is about 3.67, right? With that answer box, it jumped up to as high as 75%.
Wow.
As
1,200 queries?
And as low as 35%.
That's still good.
Yeah.
Way you look at it.
Anyway,
that totally destroys the myth that answer boxes are stealing traffic from webmasters. Loving it. Idiots.
If you get that type of answer box, then you are rewarded.
Right? Because all you actually did was good SEO. You used a list to bring out the way we used to enhance and optimize a page was to put the stuff in lists, etc. And that's still Google can tab. They'll take it how they do that. The tab data.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, you know, it's like when I see people talking about how they want to manipulate their pages and they throw an H1 tag or do this and do that to try and get an answer box, it's like, come on, if you just provide relevant information that's nice and deep and detailed, and you actually answer somebody's question, then you're going to get rewarded.
In my opinion, if you put the same stuff exactly on the page without using a list, it doesn't get an answer box.
I agree with that. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
The formatting makes a difference.
Oh, yeah. That's how they can pull the data, right? Because, well, you've written about this so much, you're probably laughing. I learned it from you. I'm not going to act like I'm the big know-it-all. I just read your blog.
I've got one test that I'm running right now, and I don't know if it's going to be successful or not. It's probably not going to be, but just be optimistic and say it might work. And I have a blog post. It's create a Google account, actually, and I want to overtake Google. Because when you do create a
help page for having a Google account, nice.
The thing is that their help page actually, to be honest with you, sucks. To put it bluntly, their help page is horrible.
Google help pages suck.
And so I've been running this test now for about 5 months, maybe 6 months, and I'm slowly. I think I'm on page bounces between page 1 and page 2. If it gets an answer box, yay! If it doesn't, I really don't care. I doubt I'm going to get it.
Yeah, you may not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I think it would help if he put a link from where he's already got the answer box on how to get followers or whatever that query was, right? And link it to the other one you want set up for answer box. That'd be interesting to see, setting up the relationship between the two pages.
That
already kind of seen as an expert.
Yeah, that would make some sense. I might try that. Goes away and do it now. Right on. That's a good idea, Terry. I think I will do that.
So, I had to nip out for a second, but Terry, have you done your introduction and told us what you've been up to this week?
Oh, this week's been pretty good. The penguin and Panda are good to this gentleman. All of a sudden, Panda runs and Terry's busy again. Loving it. Helping a young guy out and got a kind of semi-related business to another one I'm working on, so interesting. Let me see, what else did I do this week? Oh. Well, some rankings rose. Is that a good thing? And competitors dropped, likely caught by Panda. That's good. And working on the community and whatnot. So, not same old. We're still working at it, Ammon.
Yeah. Yeah. I must admit that there are times when I really love the SEO community because it is different, isn't it? There is a level of pay it forward with SEOs and to an extent with webmasters and developers too, but that I don't see in anything else. And do you know, I see it slightly more with SEO than sometimes with web developers. I don't know whether that's simply that there's more people can bluff being a web developer without any sort of level of knowledge. Whereas SEO, you can try bluffing for a little while, but it doesn't usually last past your first job that you can't rank something for. Whereas there's a lot of web developers who just do a WordPress site, buy a theme, stick a few plugins in, and continue to call themselves web developers. I'm
You don't
certainly
think
seeing
SEOs do that?
they certainly are some that run tools and just run reports, and then anything goes up, they say it's them. Anything that goes down, they say it's the search engine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the search engines didn't tell me how to do it right, so I'm waiting for instructions. That's about what a lot of people are doing, begging them for instructions. Tell us about this panda, will you? Well, how about looking at some of the sites that are affected and figuring it out on your own? I'm so glad, Ammon, that I was, and you probably feel the same way, Ben and Bill, that I'm lucky I never had tools when I started out. I had to figure, and I was going to use another word, but stuff out on my own. So you learn how to do those things. And when Google does stuff like they did last week where they're saying, hey, just pull up your skirt and show us everything, but I won't show you mine. That's not fair.
It is one of those weird things.
That. I did find a semi-workaround where I almost got it right, but you know who wouldn't? Who wouldn't allow? Who blocked the same stuff? Google. So one of the things that breaks my test is Google itself. So, to me, it's just like they no longer trust anyone, and everyone's got to trust. They got to prove they're not a spammer. That's the only reason they're want to look in your plugins folder. There is no reason for Google to index a plugin folder or to expect you to show anything in it. And here's the real bummer, right? How come they can show you the broken stuff and right beside it show you what the reader sees, which means they are already looking at those files anyways. They don't need to index them every time. They only need to verify that they're okay and move on. Trust us a little bit. We are verified on Google+. What more do we need? Does that mean nothing? We're supposed to trust everything they say, but they don't trust anything we do. I'm starting to, there used to be a little bit of trust. I don't know if anyone else remembers, but I remember in the HTML guide group, Yahoo gave us front of the row access to Yahoo, and that was a big deal. And it was because SEOs and webmasters they knew were doing the best content.
Hey, Terry, really quick, let me ask you a question, actually, because I think I must have missed this. Way too much going on in the world. So Google's asking for indexation of WordPress plugins?
Yep.
Of what WordPress plugins you are running?
If you have a CSS script in that plugins folder, they want to see it.
Right.
Just
Same
the
with
CSS script?
Pardon me?
Just the CSS script?
And
Yeah.
JavaScript.
But
Any of
here's
you
the
include.
thing, in my plugins folder, right, I had a CSS script, and I added to the robots text that they could index any JS or CSS file. For some reason, they still wouldn't pass that. In that plugins folder, they basically wanted me to open. See, before originally, Ben, like Ammon put in the thing, I had all of my includes blocked. There's no reason for Google to be in there. There is no reason for Google.
Is it under the guy? Is it under the guy? I think I actually do remember reading something a little bit about this, but is it under the guise of security?
It's under the guise of them knowing how page behavior works. When JavaScript might move content around or CSS might move stuff around, they want to be able to tell that stuff is where it's at or where it's not supposed to be at. If you have a CSS none
Got it. Yeah. So is it more to defeat people who are trying to cloak for other users or cloak for different devices?
They just want to know how it's working on your site.
Cool. It's one of those things. There's a lot of people complaining about this. I'm seeing this in various groups. And the problem is, look, if we want to no index our JavaScript and CSS, we should. In fact, it should be the default. Because you don't go around telling everyone exactly where your CSS and your JavaScript is. You don't want them indexed. There's no advantage to that for anybody. Look, if Google want to be able to look at it, go ahead and bloody look at it. It shouldn't matter if we got it robot texted off. You're just trying to see how it displays. Ignore the robot text when it comes to CSS and JS for crawling, but don't index.
Or give us the option to upload it to them and have it verified and pass you. Like, there's no need to have that not blocked by. And here's the other thing. That's not just opening it up to Googlebot unless you want to, you know, I'm one for, you know, the KISS method on everything. So my robot's text has about 5 lines in it. And for me to add the 2 to allow them to render the stuff, you saw the what I wrote before I actually did it. I wasn't going to do it until I realized, well, I'm killing my clients, so I can't really do that. Talk to the clients, let them know what I was going to do, and did it. But I'm not happy about it.
It's all very well and good that, you know, Google want to you know, be able to render pages the way that browsers do. Well, then render pages the way my browser does. I don't have to put special includes for browsers. I just do them for robots to tell them what I don't want indexed in search.
Well, here's the thing, Ammon. When you do their test, they actually put the rendered version up. So how are they doing that?
Exactly.
Right? Is that a picture, Bill, or are they actually rendering it anyhow? And this is all a thing about opening up your stuff.
The problem is Google are not the world's only search engine, and they need to get their head out of their bloody arse and realise that I deal with search engines all over the world, some of which are not as advanced as Google, and I need to block robots from certain directories. Now, if Google need to know it to know how it renders, that's all well and good, and it shouldn't matter whether I've said don't index it or not. I still don't want it indexed. If Google want to look at it, that's fine. What I'm saying with, you know, the robots text is don't index this. Google, wake up and stop trying to sabotage us with every other search engine just because you're the biggest. It's not cool, it's not clever, and it really is not going to happen either. I will block whatever I want not indexed. Period.
Okay, I'm going to jump in with a newbie question. What I've noticed, just observation with my short amount of time online and stuff, and delving into all this back-end stuff, seems like whenever there's something that I don't understand, it's for testing, some sort of testing thing that they're going to use later. So my question that comes to me naturally is, what are they trying to extract from this? Like what is the next direction that they could possibly be going with this? And with all of the transparency stuff, I don't know, it just makes me think that there's something more here.
Well, can I just say, the first time this was mentioned, Matt Cutts as much as said, what are you hiding? Right, like that type deal. Like, if you don't want to show that, you got to be hiding stuff. Like, you know what? That's so childish and adversarial, right? Like, it's not good for either community to be like that. I don't understand it. It seemed like it was one of the first times that Google had been like that, other than maybe some idiot who stood up at one of the search conventions and said we were all a bunch of, I don't know,
one of the rising stars.
But a white man.
The thing is, we already know that WordPress is very, very widely used, which gives hackers a lot of reason to want to get a hack that works on any part of WordPress, because it will get you into not just a few sites, but thousands of sites around the world. Thousands, instantly. just one single plugin hack will get you into thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of websites.
Revolution Slider was over 100,000 sites.
Exactly. And while Google says about security, and it's all everybody else's problem, guess how they find all those unsecure sites? They run a Google search to look for the includes for that file. You look for one of the signature marks of that on Google. It's the same way that people used to hack forums. What you would do is you would run a search by, say you had a hack for the BB forum. What you'd run is a search for every different domain that had the text powered by BB forum. Because
and why were people hacking those sites?
Yeah, because if you want to, if you have a particular version, yeah, if you just look for powered by BB version, and that was it. They could every single result was a hack target. It was somewhere their hack was going to work, and that's exactly what they do today. Is they look for the signatures of all of these things, and Google is the biggest helper for hackers, or rather, you know, the script kiddie hackers, to find vulnerable sites. Now, given that reality, I'm not holding the gun to Google's head and saying it's their fault, but it does mean I've got to take responsibility for making sure some of this doesn't get found. And it's all very well and good if I change the text. I mean, one thing that we did with Create a Site was we got rid of that powered by text. We put an image there instead because that wasn't going to be indexed at the time. The image looked to say exactly the same thing, but of course it was within an image. Without OCR software, you were not going to find it. Google wasn't running OCR software, so Google wasn't going to display that in the results. That, you know, reduced the number of attempts immensely. But it's no good getting rid of the obvious hallmarks if Google make it very easy for people to find the line of code through a search. And believe me, you can do some very advanced searches with Google to find all kinds of things. You can find sites with, well, I mean, one thing that can be done at the moment is you can look for people's disavowed texts. There are ways of doing that. You can look for people who've blocked certain things in their robots. You'll be amazed how many robots texts you can find through Google and look for particular things with advanced queries. So you look for a certain line.
How about all the disavow files on Google Docs that are public?
Just to throw out something, maybe a theory. Have nothing to back this up, but that kind of ties into what Kristin was saying is about testing, right? So they recently revealed the entire manual on material design, right? They obviously want people to shift towards material design. Now, I'm not a web designer at all, would never claim to be one, but if they are if they're intending to make a push towards material design, wouldn't it make sense to say, yes, I do want to look up your skirts. Yes, I want to see how you're designing your CSS. I want to see your JavaScript. I want to see everything because we're going to not only show you why material design is better for the web and better for Google and better for you as a website owner, but, and again, I have nothing to back this up, but maybe they're going to say, hey, if you have a material design site, we've noticed all this bad stuff going on for the past year. Here's our tests, our experiments, whatever. Material design's better, and we're going to give you a ranking bump because of it.
What's material design?
When Google came out with their patent on link behavior and how they were going to track link behavior, all the examples that they included in that patent were screenshots of Google Maps. You know how if you click on certain things in Google Maps, you get certain JavaScript or CSS related activity on the map? So that's what they were trying to show off. So they wanted to have some idea of how that type of behavior was happening on other sites and to index it and create a library of similar activities.
Yeah, absolutely.
So being able to see those JavaScripts and those CSS, it allows them to understand that type of behavior.
But this is the thing. We haven't taken this offline. Unless we're using cloaking, we're not stopping them looking, but we are saying don't bloody index this. It's that simple. You know, this is something that Google needs to fix on its end, but because it can't use that data without putting it in an index, it's got to have it in its database, and they can't be bothered to create a way to make it so that it can look, but it will never put this in search results. They push the onus on us and say, oh, well, you've got to make it public to everybody. Oh, and when hackers use it to hack your site, which happens, you know, 90% of all hacks are done using Google as the tool to find the hack site in the first place, that's our problem as well. Well, I'm sorry, that's not good enough, and it's time that changed.
Well, common sense would say even if they index it, they shouldn't put it in the index. I mean, even if they crawl it, they shouldn't put it in the index. Make it an internal thing where they just compare the two. Same as last time. Good go. Kind of like a robot's text. Right?
Kind of like a no index follow page.
You said a bad word to me anyhow, Bill. No index, no follow. Them fighting words.
It's no index follow page.
Oh, okay.
Because you used to be able to say no index follow, although that was technically in the specifications, there were very few engines would actually allow that to work. Most of the engines said if it isn't good enough to index, we won't follow it either. And Alta Vista, we famously proved that there was no evidence ever of any page with a no index ever having its links followed, and we did extensive tests. We know full well that, you know, if the only place to those links, didn't matter how many links, how many times you put these links in, if the page itself was no index follow,
it was no follow.
It was no follow. Yeah.
And where did Yahoo?
I forget the gentleman's name who wrote a paper on that. He was the administrator on High Rankings and Mr. Heil's site. He's a smart dude. Had search patterns.
It was Alan?
Yeah, Alan. Correct. That's
Alan.
his. Yeah, he's a real smart dude, man.
Where did Yahoo fit with that study?
Which study?
They didn't get mentioned like in anything else to do with search.
Well, at that time, Yahoo was always a mixture of other people's search engines. Yahoo had a web directory, and then they bought several people's search engines, or they rented people's search results. Remember, for a while, Yahoo was Alta Vista. For a while, Yahoo was Google. All it was doing was buying their results in. And then it was Inktomi, and then they actually purchased Inktomi. They mingled it with Fast and several other engines to create their own, and once they'd created their own, they managed to kill it within 2 years, like most things they buy.
Yahoo
I
had...
think they just gave Google, Google just gave them stock and was never really paid for the results that they were giving them.
Well,
Just
gave them considerable
got paid in
stock.
stock.
Well, it's the only thing keeping Yahoo afloat is pretty much that. Yahoo got 10% of Google the first time around when Google got its first deal to be the search provider for Yahoo. It did give Google much more presentation, much more presence to people outside the webmaster community, so it was good for Google. But Yahoo got 10% of the company through doing that, and 10% of Google is worth quite a bit. Now, in the second round, because they extended the contract and there were some other bits and bobs of negotiations went on, they got even more. And I think Yahoo owns something like 15 to 20% altogether of Google, which is considerable.
About the only thing it hasn't killed so far by buying a piece of it.
Well, this is it. They only sold them a piece. When Yahoo owns something completely, it is...
Yeah, they don't own enough to ruin it.
Yeah.
We agree on that one at least, Ammon.
Oh, every single time. If you want something to disappear forever, let Yahoo buy it. That is the fastest way to kill anything online. They have done it time after time after time. There was this thing called web rings in the early days. Web rings were an alternative source of traffic search. You created a ring, a community of sites, and then each one linked to the next and the previous, and that allowed you to travel around the circle, to travel around this whole community that might all cover a similar topic.
My God, I remember that, Ammon.
Yeah. Well, web ring
that was early days, man.
Web ring was huge. It was huge. It was bigger than search for some people, and certainly as big as social media entirely today. Really successful little venture. It was a lovely way of tying communities together. There could be a page for the community. Webring itself, webring.com, had the best implementation. It allowed you to use your own graphics. You could use image maps to create the banners for going around. Really nice system. Yahoo bought it, wanted it to look a certain way, took away all of the personalization that there'd been for it, killed it within 6 months dead.
Yahoo
So
has
what's up with Flickr?
acquisitions. Like upcoming.org was a favorite. They bought it, it disappeared within 6 months. Boom. E-groups became Yahoo groups within 6 months. And, became unusable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yahoo,
was
where technology goes to die.
But Flickr is
I'm just
awesome,
gonna-
right?
Just going to say this
Flickr's
before
awesome.
so
Flickr was
Yahoo going to do a Yahoo Plus?
Flickr.
Not saying anything there.
Photos is now.
Yeah.
They are still buying a lot of companies. They recently bought Etsy, and then all the native video advertising right for. But now they're collecting a lot of companies. Still, they have to figure out probably what to do. But I'm not sure.
Yahoo?
I'm not sure. But I'm not sure whether something will happen out of it because
There was a rumor for a while that when Marissa Mayer went to work at Yahoo, the rest of her family took out large life insurance policies because they weren't sure she'd make it through 6 months.
Well, so far she did well for the shares price, but then what the company will do in the future, that's still kind of. But on the search part, they actually dropped the ball. Now it's just display and native. That's where they, I guess.
Yahoo are a very strange company in a way. They built up on the directory and they built a very successful portal. But this is the thing. They seem to have a very old media approach to a lot of things, and that can work for a certain demographic in a certain way. But when they buy new technology, invariably they kill it because they take away the thing that gave it its individuality. They take away its USP and usually its strongest selling point straight away without even thinking about what they're doing. Time after time after time. As I say, with Webring, what made Webring was it was the most customizable, and when Yahoo bought it for a large amount of money, they took away all the customization. It's kind of like if Yahoo bought Facebook, they take away the social network. We'll have Facebook, but without people. That'll work, won't it? That's a Yahoo decision.
Who didn't have to buy them? Facebook did that themselves by turning it into an ad network.
It's still going there. It's still going.
Still going strong.
Yeah, I was listening this morning to the a business show I was listening to, and they were talking how Twitter is kind of stagnated growth, but Facebook kept going. Well, here's the thing, my suspicion, most of that Facebook growth is bots.
They're doing a lot of advertising in London, for example, even above the line outdoor. Every tube station next to a big iPhone 6 like banner, there is a Friends Facebook. So I'm not sure whether they're running out of friends or obviously they need to pump all the advertising to keep the game alive. But it looks like if before they were just growing and growing, now why else would they invest so much? There's literally ads everywhere in London, which is.
The problem is that they're... Go on, John.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere just recently, and now I totally blank on where I read it, that somebody was making a point that a certain amount of Facebook's stats that they put out are really essentially bogus, that they're really pumping their numbers. And I think I read it in some kind of business journal or something I was reading. Anybody else heard that, or am I off left field somewhere on that?
I think you find that though across all social networks, pretty much in general.
Yep.
It's like, even with Twitter, the study that Stone Temple did, showed that a majority of the Twitter accounts are ghost profiles or Autobot profiles, and the actual engagement level that's reached on Twitter is actually pretty low. I hate to say it, but I will, and that is that Facebook's got it right. They've made it a pay-to-play mechanism. They've got the market share already. They might be advertising in London, but they're just trying to get to the rest of the world and saying, hey, everybody else is here, so you got to join up here too. By the way, if you want to have your reach, you're going to have to pay for it.
This is the thing. With us professionals, with us promoters, we don't like that. But there's a lot of the users who don't mind that at all. Oh, there's a lot of ads, but they're kind of used to that. Yeah. And the less time they spend online, the more ad tolerant in a way they are, because a lot of the first sites you find are heavily advertiser driven. A lot of the very basic sort of portals, some of the sites they might be visiting late at night have a lot of advertising on. They're kind of used to it, they expect it, and it doesn't stop them still finding out what Auntie Mabel and Uncle Bill have been up to, and their friends in all over the country.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Ammon, right? Those people, I'm a brand, right? Those people followed my brand with the intention of seeing what I was posting, right? Now, they don't see it unless I pay for them to see it.
That's not true.
No, exactly.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Only 12% of people are seeing a post unless you pay for it.
Right, but only 1% of people at best actually ever followed a brand with any intention of interacting with it. The rest were tricked into, come like our page or you can't download this.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Hey, I'm not just saying that didn't happen too, right?
The more you visit a page, the more often you will find it in your stream. The more you talk with one particular person on Facebook, the more often they will come in your stream. If you are genuinely interested in that brand, it'll be all over your feed. If people are not seeing your ad, if they're not seeing you in their feed, it's because actually they weren't following you. They weren't paying attention. Yeah, they're in the numbers, but their click-throughs were not there. And I am still seeing people with massive traction on Facebook that are still getting 15% of their user base regularly interacting with them because they actually regularly interact. And I'm seeing a lot of brands where they're getting 0.5% because they were never talking to any, they were talking at people instead of with people in the first place. If you do that, yeah, Facebook is going to suck for you.
I have sort of a basic question. Okay, go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say really quickly also, on Facebook they recently rolled out, I forget how long ago it was, but it was just recent, the ability to basically, for a user to say, I want more content from this brand. And I haven't seen any data on it yet, but that's pretty good. What I love about Facebook, though, is that as a business, I can recommend and I can say, create a custom audience. I can say create a custom audience based on the traffic that you're getting to your website. I can say create a custom audience for your conversion page only, and then make a lookalike audience. And I'm going to get a cheap cost per click. I'm going to get a high conversion ratio, especially if I'm using 2 custom audiences at the minimum, and lookalike audiences. The clients that I have that are doing that are blowing all other mediums out of the water, and they're gaining new users new customers at a fast rate.
As an ad network, Facebook actually really works, but it's all in the targeting. And the targeting can be so precise, there is no other ad network remotely like it, or with the reach to do it in the first place. You know, if you want to say, okay, I want women with one child who are this age and like this brand and this brand, Facebook lets you do that. No other network, no other ad network anywhere lets you actually do that. Nothing.
Give you a real world story on that too. We have a client called Easy Rent, easyrent.com, and with Facebook, fantastic. And it works for realtors too, by the way, anybody in the real estate industry. They have a nice little option in your targeting, and that is looking for people who are looking to move soon. That right there, just that one piece on the demographics area, reveals the intent of a user. They can algorithmically look at somebody who's looking to move. And I mean, that's gold for anybody who deals with anything to do with the real estate industry. And while I can't say specific numbers, I can just say it works real well.
I can see that because of the segmentation, right? And the way they could pick that up in the conversation, right? That's going on Facebook. Okay, but there isn't a lot of that kind of targeting. Not a lot compared to what you could get with remarketing.
I don't like remarketing. Remarketing, that's the one where there is more fakes in the numbers on that than in anything else, but we've all seen the actual truth of it. The real truth of it is, I go and buy something, I am no longer in the market for that, and for the next 6 weeks I will get ad after ad after ad for the thing I am the last customer in the world for because I bought it 6 weeks ago.
It's a fantastic point.
Yeah, but isn't that partially the fact that the person that's managing that account hasn't managed your purchase properly?
Well,
and kind of removed you from his remarketing list when you make a purchase?
But this is it. A lot of people are doing retargeting on who's going to other people's sites. That's the way it was sold in the early days. Look, somebody that has been to Amazon looking at laptops is somebody I want to come to my laptop store because I beat Amazon on prices on 2 items. And you were going to shout that from the rooftop. So that's what they do. They put out a retargeting that looks for people who've been to Amazon looking for it.
Again, but I would say that's the site you chose. Because I'm actually setting this up right now. And I've done this in the old days on the Content Network. Found it to be 10 times better than the Google search network. For that reason, I can choose the sites that I want my products to show on. You make them negative if it's not good. And I've already seen, we were mentioned in a blog post on a prominent blog in Toronto, right? And that particular blog is ranking, and that mention on that page is bringing about a fair amount of traffic with like a 18% bounce rate, which coming from a blog, that's pretty good. Like that's high. I mean, that's low for coming from a blog, from what I've found anyhow. Usually people come to a blog, read the post, and they're gone. Whereas here, people are coming to the site from that blog and buying stuff. So definitely high. That's when I decided that I should be targeting these sites with some advertising.
I recently, I usually don't do social, but a friend of mine, she started like a local beauty clinic, and just 2 pages website. She's doing facial treatments and services. Bye.
Okay, Bill.
Got to run, everybody. Good to see you all again.
You too, Ben.
Bye.
Emma, we need to catch up.
Definitely.
Okay, bye.
Well, since we started 5 minutes late, I'm going to let us run 5 minutes late as well, so that everyone does get their hour if they want it. But any of our audience that can't stick with us, thanks for joining us. See you next time. Meantime, we'll carry on, and you know us after the
Bill
5
took
minutes.
off already too, eh?
We will head to the green room anyway and probably chat for another hour. So anyway, back to what you were saying.
I want to ask my basic question. Shall I wait or shall I do it here? Okay, so Facebook, when we're talking about so many views, are we talking about personal profiles or are we talking about the business profiles or both? I mean, I know that we're talking about the business ones. I mean,
for me, it would be all business because Facebook is where people go to waste time, as far as I'm concerned. So, and I don't waste my time, so I don't spend much time on Facebook.
But it is
my
both.
impression. Sorry, go ahead.
It is both. I'm seeing in my circles, you know, when I'm talking with somebody a lot, their post will come up a lot. Somebody I haven't spoken to in a year, I hardly ever see a post from them, which is, you know, barely making me connect with them. You know, the less they appear in my stream, the less likely I am to interact with them, and it can be self-referencing. I think there is an algorithm that kind of throws everything up sooner or later if it's, you know, getting enough interaction from everybody else. So there's two things you can do as a business, but it seems to be an algorithm across the whole thing, whether you're a business or a person. The reason that people are talking about it for business is because this is mostly business accounts who don't use it personally, so they haven't noticed that and think it's just picking on them. No, this is the way the algorithm works for what it brings to the surface. Because what they're trying to do now is limit that, less of the infinite scroll. It's still there, but they kind of advertise it on, here's 10 things from your network. Give you a digestible chunk. And those top 10 will be on the people you've been interacting with most, mixed with the kind of things that they're sharing that you tend to interact with the most. And if some of those are businesses, then some of those are businesses. If they're not, they're not. It's just most businesses don't put stuff out that tends to get the kind of interaction that personal stuff does.
And also, at the beginning, maybe it's also down to the user behavior, because at the beginning, people used to collect followers, and then when, for example, I don't use Facebook, I have an account, I have like 5 friends and follow 3 companies. And because I follow only a few of them and I select them, obviously my feed makes sense. My friend that is following 200 brands, obviously they got to a point where they don't read any of them, and now they're trying probably to make a little bit more sense out of it, rather than. But still, there are companies that try to collect followers. That's where probably their organic strategy doesn't work as much, because they're just one of the many thousand.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of the time when people do this call to action, oh, like us on Facebook. You can be on a completely different platform. It can be, I've seen this embedded into software, like us on Facebook. Because in the old days, you know, that was the metric they thought counted most, and there was a time when it was one of the ones, you know, the most liked brands were the ones getting the interaction, but now it's the actual ones who get interaction. And it's on a percentage. If you've built up hundreds of thousands of followers that weren't actually following, you have created a demerit for yourself, and you need to get them to drop you fast, because what you want is to get that percentage of people. I've got 100 followers and 20 of them interact. That's 20% interaction. I've got 100,000 followers and maybe 1,000 dig in. That's 1%. I've got 5 million followers and I'm lucky if 10,000 actually interact with anything. I've screwed myself royally, and what I probably need to do is remake that brand page and start building up genuine interaction from the start so that it's there, because Facebook is actually using audience interaction as its primary metric, and I quite like that. And for the companies who don't get that, it's one of the best advertising networks out there. It's very cheap if you use targeting right. Seriously, it's cheaper than almost anything except organic traffic, and it's more reliable in its way once you've mastered it than organic traffic. So it's a fantastic source of traffic.
I recently advised to a small business to use it. I mean, no background, totally no idea about what the web is, beauty therapist, and within a week, without me following her, the pages live, she laser targeted the exact category she's after, and within 2 weeks and probably less than £100, 3 phone calls and 2 clients coming into her. So that's the kind of thing where advertising really works for those demographics. But then I guess probably bigger companies are struggling a little bit.
Cool. Well, we are at the hour now, so I'm going to do the quick round of finding out what people are up to. And Terry, you go first. What are you up to this coming week?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Working on a few things, actually. Probably working on the remarketing campaign with our buddy. Yeah, and I'm also looking at writing an application to manage disavow, and well, I already got it partially written, and probably a friend of mine and myself are gonna finish it finally.
Cool. Cool. Kristin, what are you up to this week?
I found my new favorite website to go to is called the Sociological Imagination, and I love sociology. I love statistics. I love looking at all of that, and so that's kind of like one of the things that drew me in here. Advocacy and trying to figure out how everything works together so that I can figure out, my end of a theory to help the world be better. So I'm really exploring that. I'm having a lot of fun doing that. And I'm actually formulating questions for the next Bogus Hangout right now in my head.
Cool. Well, next week we are going to try and do a special one, of course. So I'll do my little what's coming up this week. Well, I've got my hangout with Vin again tomorrow, and that should be a good one. We're doing content marketing and really getting into the marketing part of content marketing, because so many people don't understand it. I still see people who think content marketing is about marketing their content instead of what it really is, which is using your content to do marketing. It's your marketing, but finding the right piece of content to do it. So that's coming up. Next week on the Bogus Hangout, we're doing a creator site special, hopefully. We'll have as many people from the old creator site forums drop in as we can get. And I shall be twisting arms and kicking butts to try and get lots of people over.
All right, then my questions will be for the next week.
You must get Peter on there, Ammon.
I would love to. Peter Devanzo, Sophie would get. There are so many that I would love to get on, but we'll only be able to fit so many, of course. But yeah, I'll be chasing that up. John, what are you up to this coming week?
Well, other than having problems with my mic today, I guess I needed to have reboot my computer. Is it behaving itself now?
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. It's fine when you're talking. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the problem was the mic that was my default input was keeping clicking out, and then it would go to my machine as a default input, which then picked up God knows what, everything. So I've got it set now so that this is my default, and so if it clicks out, it bounces to this mic. So it should be behaving itself now. I probably should have rebooted my machine. Anyway, so much for the technical stuff. I've been busy with a lot of personal stuff lately, between my being a grandfather and a new home that they've just bought and helping them get set up, and we're putting in a solar system, and then of course the old thing called taking care of your customers. We got to keep working on that, and I really haven't taken any new customers in several months now because of that, because I don't want to shortchange the customers that I have. So I've just been focusing on my old customers, and then the other thing is next week we're getting ready for that nice show that Ammon and Mark and David are going to show up on, and I'm really excited about that. So I'm working on some posts and analyzing what I know, and I've been reading everybody's. I'm just studying like crazy. So hopefully I can ask some really intelligent questions. So that's what I'm doing.
I'm just going to nod sagely while Mark and David talk. You know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if you believe that, you'll believe anything.
Oh my goodness! When you and Oleg were doing your show, I wasn't just joking. I really, literally had a bet with someone. I was like, I bet they're gonna go to 2 hours. It's an hour show. They're gonna go to 2 hours because both of them are gonna be like, and then, and if you look at it like this, and I was off by a half hour and 20 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, you were pretty close. That show went on forever. I have yet to watch it all. You know, I still have a place on my notebook where I think I'm at almost an hour now. I have to go back and watch some more. I just can't. I can't get it all in.
Totally worth it. Good stuff. Really good stuff in there.
Yeah, that's not a criticism.
Yeah. Next week I'm trying to prep and close the week earlier because I'm going on holiday back to Italy for 3 days during the week. So I'm trying to squeeze all the work into the next 2 days. I'm into what I would describe as a big keyword research, not just volume and so on, but we're looking at more what's the opportunity, what is the landscape for this keyword, do we have any feature snippet or what. I mean, we're trying to expand this, and the goal would be to come up across like 10 countries with a kind of big master plan to cover what we're going to do next. So that's kind of a big thing, but it takes time because some part is done with APIs and tools, some other parts is quite manual in terms of defining categories, topics, and especially because for some of the very niche, we use, for example, related searches where there's no volume, so it would be literally having someone to look into it. But again, this gives more value with the landscape changing so much. I think it makes more sense than we want to move away, and I think we have done this since a while from 2 columns keyword research, keyword and volume. that's what the plan is. Oh.
Cool. Well, that's all we've got time for on air this week. We'll obviously carry on the discussions we usually do, but take care, everyone. See you next week.